meet them. She worked with her, and was great. She figured out how to do it. And she said she started doing yeah. She took off the film show. But it's nice to see her. She was watching her. I thought in the marbles together. So I'm sure they're changing the application for chapter. There's no test on the card. There's buttons on the card, so it's actually not right next to it. You use my zero yeah. Just to turn it on. Yeah, well, she did this yours. I sit on the top of it. You start with the test one. I did. It's good when you do. I gave you the videos from the email last year. And she nice about this time of year. We have a video for everything. Well, we do have some husbands. I guess I didn't like reading so it's like written on the page and we didn't finish, but you should have finished. And we kind of like on the class, so you didn't have to do it quick. Yeah, the one you know, question.
It's always the longest final few minutes.
It's kind of too. So you were worried about not having season, huh? Yeah. I'm glad you wrote and Mr. Condon actually come to us. And she said that her student said yes. And then he said he'd get the paperwork because it would have print at the hospital. So I think I'll get it back tomorrow. I think that was allergies for her tomorrow. And then you know, no, I haven't.
You are unmuted. Everybody ready?
Yep.
All right. Good evening and welcome to the Plymouth Community School Board April meeting. April meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Item 1.2, opening, setting of agenda. Are there any additions or corrections?
Yes, we did have some consent agenda additions of some resignations or transfer, substitute addition. I did add a resolution to the legislative update for board consideration this evening, and then we did add an agenda item, consider Indiana Adult Education Grant Assurance Agreement.
Okay. All right, with those additions, I would entertain a motion to set the agenda.
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Audience participation. Are there any agenda items that any of our audience members would like to speak?
Hi, I'll speak on item 2.13, the student activity request.
Okay. All right. Remind me when we get there.
Is that mine?
Okay. All right. So item 2, consent agenda. Are there any items that anyone would like to pull out of the consent agenda before we vote? We can talk about it during discussion. Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So,
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Item 2.13 has to do with the European History Tour. And what would you like to tell us about that?
So Laura Cryer, Chair of the Social Studies Department, I have Melissa Fallstitch, who is one of the organizers of the trip to Europe that our Social Studies Department takes. I'll let Melissa say a few words, but I also want to come back and add a little bit, some perspective as a parent who has had 2 children attend these trips.
Yeah, we get so excited about offering these opportunities, and so we offered another trip for about a year and 3 months away, be in July of 2022. And people were really optimistic that, COVID is getting better and that hopefully things will just keep getting better. And so we have right now 80 travelers that have signed up interested to go. So we're pretty excited about that. We're repeating some of the same places and going to a few new places. So we're still going to go to fly into London. We think that's a little easier start in an English-speaking language because there's always like the big city shock for Plymouth students, and riding the subway or the tube is always a big thing for them. So, and then we'll go to the Canterbury Cathedral and then take the ferry across to Normandy. And this time we do the Normandy Beach thing in the American Cemetery. We love that. But we also get to do more in the Normandy and the Brittany region of France. So we get to go to Mont Saint Michel, which is like a medieval monastery that sort of gets surrounded by water when the water comes up. And then the normal things in Paris. We found that students get really excited about seeing the Eiffel Tower and just being there in Paris. And then the last thing is to take a train to the Netherlands and to see the Anne Frank House and some of the canals. And I think any of them that saw even the Fault in Our Stars, that movie, would have seen that they visited the Anne Frank House in that movie. So I think some of them are kind of excited about that too. I know I am. So we're excited.
That's great, and I know it's a great opportunity for our kids. What kind of protections do you have in case there's something that happens with the COVID virus that...
All right. So right now, EF has we're going through education first at EF. They have like a no-risk enrollment, so until August 1st, if people change their mind, they get all their money back and there's no penalty or anything. And then after that, they start to kind of lose money the closer it gets to the trip. But if it gets really bad, if COVID gets bad or a country shuts down, we're not allowed to fly in, then we either change our dates, so we just have to postpone and go at a later time when it is safe, or change our destination. Like if one country shuts down, I would think that if one country shuts down that we would just postpone, but they can just alter and give you a different itinerary, take you to different destinations. They're kind of flexible that way. But probably the most likely thing, if we couldn't travel because of COVID, they would just have to postpone like another summer, or wait 6 months or a year, something like that.
So the trip is 2022 though, so again, not this summer, but next summer. And I can tell you from a parent standpoint, I've had 2 of my children now who have attended these trips. Kelsey attended the first one, and then Emma and I went along on the second one as well. And the opportunity is just unbelievable for, many kids, again, small town, who may not be able to get out and travel. This offers an opportunity that's fairly economical for them to go visit Europe. But more importantly, it is well guided, so they are learning along the way. And I even said the last time we went, Melissa's an old hand at this, but for all the years that I've taught about World War II and the invasion of Normandy, and I've looked at pictures and I've read a lot of articles, you really just don't get a sense of it until you are there and you're looking across the beach and you're seeing the challenges our soldiers had of making that invasion. And that is probably one of the most valuable parts of the trip, is the learning that goes with it. The other part is Brian Wolf is one of the organizers as well. And I can tell you, Ryan and Melissa, they are very conscientious about how they organize this trip. And as a parent, I have full faith and confidence in them, and have no problem with putting my child in their care.
Thanks. Thank you. I appreciate all that insight. That does help clarify a lot.
I think it's fantastic that we get that opportunity to get back on schedule. I think that's great.
It's exciting. Any other questions for Laura and Melissa? All right, we have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item 3, business transactions. 3.1, project update.
Yeah, for projects to update you on. First, regarding the new Lincoln Junior High, we're just down to a couple of contracts that need to be wrapped up and finalized. Everything else is punch listed and done, and we're in warranty period for that. So that's good. Feel optimistic about where's the other two and what needs to be completed there as well. The Lincoln Education Center, we are going through a punch list now with contractors on that. The most noticeable thing that needs to be finished is the parking lot, and that should be begun in the next 2 weeks and completed in the next probably 3 or 4, depending on weather. So, excited about that. You'll see some site work finishings as well. Just kind of around the front area that needs to be cleaned up. I think they were removing the fence today. I'll drive by and see the construction fence, I think, is down or close to being down. And a few other things we're going to take care of on our own on the inside. We noticed after completion, we need to paint those yellow lockers because they just don't match. So we're going to do that. We'll keep the red ones upstairs. That's kind of our bargaining chip. But nonetheless, we have people in. Jesse has moved in. Vocational cooperative offices are in. Adult education has moved over as well. It's really been a team effort to get to that point. Our maintenance and technology staff have been great in kind of the final days of just bringing all that together. And it's exciting to have people in there in their own space and not kind of all crammed into the places they have. So we're excited for them and for that. We have a big roofing project, obviously, that the board has approved. We're going to have our initial project meeting this week yet, and so there's been some good changes in that regard, and I hope to make that project a bit more concise. The contractor is going to bring 3 crews on site to handle each of the 3 buildings all at the same time, as opposed to taking one, getting that finished and moving on to the next one. So we're hoping to begin that maybe at the end of April, certainly by the 1st of May, and I imagine that'll take a couple months to complete. So late June, early July is what we're anticipating at that time. And then we're working on the auditorium in the high school, and that's going to be drawn out a little bit, but we're working to secure a structural contractor, and then we've been talking with lighting folks and sound folks to get those kind of 3 big areas done this summer. And then, as I told you, the next summer will be seating, flooring, walls, and things like that. So in the course of 2 summers, we'll be able to tackle our auditorium at the high school to bring that up to current times and allow it to keep doing what it's been doing so well, which is creating some great performances for our community by our kids. Project updates.
Andy, any idea when you may be looking at an open house?
For Lincoln's?
Yeah.
Yeah, not a specific date, but I think I'd like to navigate the next month to 6 weeks to see, just make sure we kind of hold steady and where we are. I think we can probably get something together.
I was hoping to get better because I've had a lot of people ask.
Yeah, end of the school year, certainly I think in the summertime we can be able to pull that together. If nothing else, just create a schedule that, maintains some safe distances, but also get the community to be able to see that. So.
It'd be great.
I think everybody will really be impressed
Oh,
if they can get in there. Yeah.
Definitely.
Thanks, Andy. Any other questions for Andy on the project? Okay. Legislative update.
Thank you. Well, Plymouth Community Schools was a proud participant in a multi-county gathering supporting public education that was in Warsaw a couple weeks ago. I know people in the room were able to attend that, and that was greatly appreciated. The intent of that was to draw just more attention to the collaboration around the need to support our public schools. Over 90% of our students in Indiana attend public schools. And while the intention of the legislature over the past about 10 years has been to fund all students' education regardless of whether they're in a public, private, or charter school, it's my belief that the legislature should fully fund public schools first. The governor's teacher compensation report outlines several steps that can be explored to help tackle that. And we've been implementing several of those even before that report came out. And one of those includes filling the funding gap that's been created over the past decade by the legislature. They took some steps a couple of years ago. We remember that because it was right in the midst of our referendum, which we lost. But not that I was okay with losing that, but knowing that the legislature had stepped up a bit and was able to provide, help us fill what we needed to do for our employees, made that loss, I guess, a little bit more easy to swallow. And so, I say a lot to say that should continue. We're in the budget year, it should continue. Compensation report by the governor indicated that there is a funding shortfall by the legislature, and there's no better time for this to begin than now. The state budget bill is kind of where all this sits, and that is still active. It's going to be in its final committee hearing on Thursday, the Senate Appropriations Committee, which Senator Mitchell chairs. And all that to say, there are other bills certainly that are going through the legislature, some that have been helpful, some that I think are not. But this is the big one, and this is the time. And so I know you asked previously about a resolution, and so I prepared that for you in light of everything that's been happening, in light of that multi-county event that happened a couple of weeks ago. I think also helped kind of put some of this phrasing together that made it in such a way reflective of the intentions of fully funding public schools, putting education savings accounts and the expansion of vouchers at least on pause for now until we can fill those gaps that have been identified by the people who are working out there on a daily basis. So that resolution is before you this evening. This will be an action item for the legislative update. Okay. And the resolution reads, whereas the Indiana General Assembly during its 2021 legislative session is considering bills that establish education savings accounts and expanding vouchers, whereas the cost of education savings accounts and school vouchers are covered exclusively by our state's school tuition support fund, further providing fewer public dollars to fund our public schools and increase teacher salaries. And whereas the board understands that the Indiana General Assembly's desire to fund all students K-12 education regardless of the type of school, the board believes that the General Assembly should not enact education savings accounts or expand vouchers and should continue to promote and fully invest in Indiana's public schools. More specifically, to further the public good, public funds should be invested in improving schools designed to serve all children and to aid in improving Indiana public school teacher salaries, as recommended by the Governor's Teacher Compensation Commission in its report on December 14, 2020. And whereas the board believes that public schools provide a strong educational environment for all Indiana's children, and education savings accounts, if enacted, and expansion of vouchers would put this environment at risk by directing resources away from the schools. So be it resolved that the school board of Plymouth Community School Corporation opposes the passage of signing of any bill expanding vouchers and or creating education savings accounts. So that is before you for consideration this evening.
Okay.
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? I will say I had the privilege of attending at the Warsaw High School. Laura was there and Jill also was there. And they presented a lot of information that was, I think, eye-opening. It would be eye-opening for people to see. And I don't know if we can make that available to people, the statistics of, where Indiana stands as far as teacher compensation and compared to the rest of the
Yes, we are. We have not been keeping up as we should.
Right.
Is the simplest way to put that. And I think the efforts, I've told folks, I'll watch the committee hearings and I'll read testimonies, and I understand the other side. I can see that. I still struggle with the education savings accounts, but nonetheless, there's been a report that certainly shows, I think, bipartisan report that shows that there is a funding shortfall that has happened over the course of time, and I think it's certainly, I hope this resolution reflects this body's belief that should be taken care of.
Agreed. Any other discussion?
The article that was in the newspaper, I thought was very well written and documented. I think it clarified a lot of situations.
Anything else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, motion carries. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Okay. Consider permission to apply for grants.
This is an annual action item by the board that provides permission for the school district to apply for a multitude of grants, most of which are non-competitive but essential in support or allowing us to support the many programs that help our students. So this list is before you this evening with the recommendation for approval.
So moved. Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, consider Indiana Adult Education Grant Assurances.
Well, this is actually one of those grants, but it has a separate list of assurances that need the board to approve and subsequently be signed by the president of the board. And these are just the assurances that we provide as a school district surrounding adult education in that program. And so it's presented to you this evening for your approval.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Second. All right, is there any discussion? Anybody have questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, motion carries. Okay, consider revisions to the classified conditions of employment and classified employee guidelines.
So there are a couple of updates to these two documents. The first is with respect to the technology department staff. And you see all the changes highlighted in both documents. But as Mr. Fisher here has settled into his new position, and as a response to an opening that's occurred within the department, he's looked at reorganizing things and responsibilities, and it's reflected in this new position, a computer apps network deployment technician. This allows us to seek a skilled individual that can provide support in a multitude of areas in the department, the district, something that we're excited about. Additionally, you'll see there that the computer maintenance and infrastructure technician is really the new title to reflect the job responsibilities that someone already has in the department. If you were to compare this to like the previous document, it may look like we're adding a position. That's not the case. There are two spots in that area there are two positions in that department that have not been filled, the computer technician and the technology secretary. We're not seeking to fill those right now. Those were steps that department took through attrition over the past few years and in their part to contribute toward us saving in expenditures. So, additionally, these two documents outline a change in how a classified staff could begin earning vacation time upon being hired. Just a few adjustments in there that I think will help also clarify some expectations around overtime in meetings, providing approval for that. And lastly, these documents outline some reimbursement amounts for positions that require non-stop shoes and some certification if an on-site course is not available. We typically offer it. Sometimes they're not available in some other cases. All that said, two documents together is a recommendation for your approval tonight.
Okay, I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Okay, second. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Superintendent's monthly remarks.
Well, I did mention during our previous meeting that a group is working on a proposal for maintenance expansions, changes to alternative ed programming. They're still working on that. We have a first draft, but I want to sit down with some folks and review that before we before this group for consideration. So anticipate that being ready for our main meeting. Last, this is regarding what I call a COVID update. I'm sure you're aware the governor did recently announce some changes with respect to his executive orders. I think it's important to note, just to make you aware, that the masking requirements for schools have not changed from the state. For schools, and even in our most recent meeting with the Marshall County Health Department, which was this afternoon, their desire for schools to remain status quo for the remainder of the year is very evident. They just expressed that what we've been doing has worked. And it's allowed us to be in school at this point, and we want that to continue for the remainder of the school year. So that's what we're going to do. We'll continue to require masks at school. We'll continue to follow the guidelines and expectations provided to us by our state and local officials who really value that partnership with our local health department. I continue to say that. I've said that I think every meeting throughout this school year. And I just continue to hear from them, their care and concern for our students and staff, and make sure that we have a safe and healthy environment for everyone. That's really been expressed recently through their reaching out to us to coordinate vaccination clinics for our staff. There are 2 of them. We had one just prior to spring break. We have the other one scheduled for next week. And really appreciate their efforts in that regard and the ability that the opportunity that they've created for our staff for those who choose to get vaccinated. And we had around 100 staff members choose to do that on the first day, which was amazing. Lastly, I think in the consent agenda with the approval of the field trip, say field trip is so much more than that. This is the wrong term, experience, is bringing to light that they're trying to get back to some things that we've done, the traditions that we have, and it's exciting to see. We're doing so cautiously. I appreciate the steps that this group is taking and the work that they're doing with their EF tour group to ensure safety, but also just continue monitoring those situations. There are other traditions that are coming back, things that we didn't get to do last year that we're going to work on doing this year, or they were altered significantly last year. We're going to host graduation this year. Now, this is a good thing that maybe came from COVID, because we're going to do it out of the football field. That was a great night, a great experience, a great setting, and so we're going to work to continue that and make that a new tradition. We're looking to do that on June 4th. We'll send out invites, but we're excited for that. We're going to host a prom this year. It's going to look a little different. It'll be outside. Have some new restrictions. I don't know if that'll end up being a new tradition or not, but it's what individuals came up with, and there's excitement around that, to be able to bring that back and to do something that is, I don't know if the rite of passage is the right word, it's just something that kids look forward to. And so we want to make sure that we maintain that. We're going to be hosting honoring banquets and award ceremonies and doing those things. They're going to look a little different, but we're going to get those back into the mix and really celebrate the accomplishments of our students, our teachers and staff this year. And it's going to be great. And so the academic awards, academic excellence banquet that typically would have been, it was on the calendar for last night, is slated for a couple of weeks from now. I'll get that invitation to you. I just saw that email come through today. And other ceremonies, the senior awards day, the awards day at some other schools, field day, all those things we're looking to reintegrate in ways that still promote a safe environment, but also one that has to celebrate the good things from this school. So we're excited for that. With that, our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May 4th, 7 o'clock. My remarks.
Any questions for Andy? Okay. Then I would, is there any other audience participation things you want to talk about?
I'd just like to say, Lord Cryer Plymouth Education Association this time, thank you very much for the passage of the resolution. your teachers stand with you in opposition to those parts of the bill that will have an impact on public education. Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right. Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
I know a couple of you, at least a couple of you